Welcome to the American Reformation Podcast. Tim Allman here. Today I get the privilege of hanging out for the first time with a brother in the ministry. His name is Pastor Kevin Bueltmann, and he is the director at the Shepherd's Canyon Retreat Center, which I and our team, Kevin, I don't know if I told you this. I didn't tell you this.
Nope.
I and our team, we were blessed to be at a retreat about a year ago. We were doing a visioning retreat, and man, Dave and Barb Anderson, what amazing hospitality we experienced there. So how you doing, brother, before we get into the conversation? It's gonna be fun.
I was so wanting to be at that retreat because that was just like a couple of days before I arrived. It was actually 2 years ago, but yeah, it was right before I arrived, and because I've got some friends on staff at your place, and so I was bummed that I couldn't be there any sooner, but I'm here.
No, it's all good. Well, we're going to get into your story, but before that, kind of a standard opening question. How are you praying for reformation as you look at the broader landscape? And given your work at the Shepherd's Canyon Retreat Center with ministers from Lutheran and many other kind of church backgrounds, you get to see the good, the bad, and kind of the ugly of ministry and the joy that comes through suffering with the Savior, Jesus the Christ. So as you look at that kind of broader Christian landscape, how are you praying for reformation there, Kevin?
Yeah. Well, my prayer is that God would strengthen and heal his wounded warriors and keep them from going AWOL. In other words, that our pastors, ministry leaders, and spouses would find help so they can be strengthened to serve in ministry with joy so they don't lose hope and drop out. So that's what I would pray for.
No, I love that. I've been a pastor now 17 years, and you use wounds. Shout out to Henry Nouwen and kind of the wounded healer paradigm, because that's truly what we are. And especially as those in a Lutheran tradition, it's the theology of the cross in real time, that our wounds, our suffering, it is a testimony to the only one who can heal us. And a lot of times in our culture, even in ministry, we're prone to say, you know what, I'm just fine. No one needs to see me, sweat or struggle or trials, and even pastors can have that kind of hero mentality, like, and you mask your insecurity with pride. And we have a hard time sometimes developing close friendships where we can share our struggles and receive prayer and care and love. And I know that's the heart of what Shepherd's Canyon Retreat Center's all about. So before we get into Shepherd's Canyon, tell just a little bit of your ministry story and what kind of led you into leading at Shepherd's Canyon, Kevin.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been in ministry for quite a while, since the late 80s here. And I started off working with youth and music at congregations in Illinois and Montana, and then ended up in camp ministry and served in Nebraska and Illinois, and then eventually went to seminary and ended up getting called back to the very first church that I served at in Montana, because they had their own camp and everything. And so I served up there. So I was the camp director and then also one of the two pastors there. And then right before COVID hit, our senior pastor, of course, he didn't know COVID was about to hit, and he took a call out of state, and the elders said, "Hey, why don't you just hang on for a couple of months until we find another pastor, and to be a leader of this congregation." And of course, if you know anything about pastor shortages, especially in our denomination, it was a year and a half, and I knew it would be a while, but part of that pride that you were just talking about kind of set in. It's like, oh, I can do it. I've never failed. I can do this thing here and all that. So yeah, I just kind of jumped in and said, okay, let's do this. But after a year, I was just burned out. I was just angry at everybody. I was angry at God. Why have you forsaken me? Had very few of the fruits of the Spirit at that time. And I just wanted to quit and be a Walmart greeter, because at least I knew how to greet people at the door. I was a professional at that. And ended up leaving the church and went to a marriage ministry, because they said, hey, you don't have to work weekends or evenings. We only want you to work during the week because we want healthy workers in this ministry. And I'm like, is this a Christian ministry? And it is. And anyway, so I worked there for a while, loved it. But then Shepherd's Canyon Retreat, where I went 4 years ago, I went there for a healing retreat, and that turned things around. And but then ended up, they said, hey, we want you to come here to work for us. And so my wife and I did. And then a year ago, they said, hey, our founder is, ready to retire. And so they wanted me to be in charge. So that's how I ended up here. It's just a group of a lot of broken people all helping other broken people heal. So it's great. I love it.
That's it. If you don't mind, can we go back to that year and a half in the parish? And I kind of had not probably as serious, I guess, of an experience, but when our associate pastor left, we had about a 9-month, year-long interim. And I remember going to because finances, it was COVID too, and finances are a little questionable, and can we afford, to get another pastor? And I remember one of my elders, a long time, really a father in the faith, a spiritual father in the faith. He looked at me, and we were still running 2 campuses, and I'm preaching 4 times a weekend and preaching probably 90% of the time. And there were other vicars and support staff here, but it just, the weight of it was pretty, and I didn't tell many people about it, to be honest, because of my own pride probably. And maybe I didn't even, you don't even stop long enough to assess how overworked, burdened you actually are during that time. And that father in the faith said, hey, we have to call. And that team set into motion. If we hadn't extended, Pastor Michael Hayden's now been with us here, and he's amazing compliment. All the things I wish I could be at a pastor is Michael. And man, the Lord's hand was just all over that, because I could have gotten to that place as well. So if you don't mind sharing just a little bit more of the details of that story. Was it just the week in, week out grind, the sermons, all the counseling, just kind of the weightiness of it? What was it for you, Kevin?
Well, as I look back, I realized that it wasn't just burnout. It was really something that we call compassion fatigue. And what that is, and if people in the medical field or military know what that is because it's when you're caring for other people, more than you care for yourself. You're not caring for yourself. And so, like, for example, as a pastor, you have your sermon every week, but then you've got a funeral coming that you just found out about or something. And then, someone just ended up in the hospital, and then you've got somebody calling you up complaining about something here. And so it's kind of like this triage situation, like in an ER room and stuff like that here. For me specifically, I think, because I had gone through, and I was trying to explain to my elders that I was burned out. I needed help. I even asked for help for a short-term intern, and they refused to do that. And so what I did is, it wasn't until one Sunday. I was just like so burned out that one Sunday I forgot to say the words of institution. Now, in our denomination, that's a big deal. But I just forgot, somehow. And then during the middle, in between services, I was just a wreck. And 2 elders came in to kind of remind me not to forget that the next service. And then they saw these tears in my reddening eyes. They're like, wow, I think there really is something wrong. Kevin needs some help. And then they didn't know what to do. But at least now they finally realized after, over a year that, I needed help. And I was crying for it, but they just thought I was just, whining or something. I don't know. But it was a tough period of time.
Yeah. Pastoral ministry it's just difficult. It's just difficult. I don't know what else to say. Pastor Michael that I mentioned, his mom actually tells a story of when he said he was going to be a pastor that she started to cry.
Oh,
because his dad's a pastor, and she just knew what it would mean. The heaviness of it is bearing. It is compassion fatigue. It's a look back over all of the different people I've cried with.
Yeah.
And it's not just cry, like wept, the not just the death, but maybe the suicides and But to have, like, the only way I've kind of made it, I think, is it has to be about a team.
Yes.
Of people who are bearing all of it together. And so we've got a spiritual care team of about 25 people who are providing compassionate care, connecting with the homebound and the hurting and the hospitalized every single week, So I'm on and Pastor Michael is actually our care pastor. Not that I don't care, but this is like his main gifting, right? And so I think it really is. It's finding your sweet spot and then building a team around the areas where, man, if I have to do these things, and for instance, like for me, if 80-90% of my job was spent doing care ministry, that would not be one in my like sweet spot of gifting, because I'm more of a like the visionary kind of rah-rah galvanizing type of a guy, right? So I have to have a team built around those things that I can do, but maybe shouldn't do the majority of the time. There's all different types of pastors. I think one of the misnomers is to be a pastor, right, Kevin? There's a cookie cutter mold that you've kind of got to be everything for everybody.
Right.
And that is very, very dysfunctional. Any observations too, as we move into your work at Shepherd's Canyon and how pastors kind of feel like they have to fit that mold?
Well, I think that's the thing, is that sometimes, I've been told, and I'm trying to observe to see if this is really true. And it seems like it's very true, where pastors in really small churches are fine. Pastors in really large churches are fine. It's a lot of the ones that are in between, that where their church is maybe not big enough to be able to afford a second staff person or whatever here. But yet they have the responsibilities and and they're moving towards a large church model, but they're still not quite there yet. So it's transition where pastors are caught in the middle of having to do it all and stuff. But but I think it's really important to have not only a team, to surround you with in ministry, whether they're staff or volunteers, but also a support team that I've never had, where you get like a handful of people that they're not there to judge you. They're just there to make sure that, are you being are you financially, are you, do you have help? Are you exercising enough? Are you eating right? Do you have the right kind of health care, housing? Just to kind of be an advocate, because when you, as a pastor or whatever church worker, go to tell someone else at your congregation, your board or whatever, that, hey, asking for your own salary raise, that's just really, really awkward, because we all took a vow of poverty, and we're not supposed to be concerned about money and all that. So, but anyway, it's just good to have other people kind of speaking on your behalf, as opposed to you sounding like, because then that just makes it so much harder for pastors to get help. Yeah. Because you're right, like you said at the beginning, it's hard to reach out, because it's hard to be too transparent to your members about your problems. And when you gather with other pastors, at least in some denominations, you feel like you're just there being judged as opposed to being supported. And so it's just a whole interesting conundrum.
Yeah, no, that's a heavy thing. You need an advocacy team. I hear you talking. You need a prayer team. That can be kind of one and the same, I think, in many.
That would be great.
In some contexts, it may be the elders who are kind of lifting up your hands and partnering with you. But yeah, to go it alone is not an option. Right. And I kind of resonate with that kind of medium size. Maybe it's a congregation that's worshiping 150 in our denomination. Over 45% of the congregations are worshiping less than 50, which is they're hardly able to sustain, one pastor. So a congregation worshiping 150, you can have one, maybe 1.5 kind of full-time staff members, and you're just trying to make it to cast vision. You kind of, at a church that size, you kind of you do wear a lot of hats. Yeah. And one of the things that ULC kind of teaches is, how do you build a staff, but you don't pay for them? How do you start to build a team before you have the resources to? And here's another little shout out right now. I really believe one of the strategic opportunities for churches, regardless of the size, and specifically for that medium-sized church, is the boomer generation, early retirement, the mid-60s to early 70s. They don't need resources, but they're still looking for meaning and purpose, and they've got passion and energy to get about the mission of Jesus. Jesus. If you can put that man or woman in the right seat on the proverbial team bus, man, off you go, off you run. And I think they're there in a lot of our churches, but I don't know that we're shoulder tapping them, having the IC&U conversations as well with them, and giving them not just a task, but responsibility, like an area of ministry of responsibility. Right. Anything more that you've observed there, Kevin?
Yeah, no, I think that's no, you said it well. You said it well. So yeah.
Hey, let's go here. If you're hanging out with a lot of different leaders, not just pastors, but other leaders who are coming through the Shepherd's Canyon Retreat Center, what are the top 3 challenges that you're seeing in leading at the local congregational level right now?
Yeah.
What are folks working through?
Well, as far as like specifics, I don't have those because I actually don't even spend any time in the sessions with the people that come, because we have therapists and chaplains that come from out of state that come to help out. And so it's all confidential. They don't tell me why they're here, and all that here. So, but I can't be specific, but I'd say in general, there's a lot of different things, that people come for. I mean, a lot of it is burnout or whatever here. Sometimes it's marriage issues. Sometimes people come here because they're getting ready for a sabbatical and they want to kind of focus on what do I need. And they use this week as a chance to kind of bounce back ideas off of people, other church workers, and also the therapists. But sometimes people even use that at the beginning of a sabbatical just to kind of launch with this healing and everything like that. But sometimes the problems are self-inflicted wounds, and sometimes they're external. What church members have done to them or something like that. So, yep.
Hey, no, that's good. As you look at building resilience in a church leader, and again, I'm not asking you to get specific, just kind of paint with a broad brush. What are the top 3? You can choose 3 or 4, whatever, behavioral traits that you pray every church leader has, especially in these challenging times in the post-Christian culture, secular culture in which we find ourselves today. Top 3 or 4 behavioral traits that you pray they have. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would say that humility is part of that equation. Because sometimes pride gets in the way, and we don't even realize it sometimes. Pride can be like, and pride comes in 2 forms. Sometimes it comes as pride being about, boasting about something great, but also can be self-pity, where we're complaining about something, and it's just that's the opposite side of pride that we don't always think about. But so humility is huge. I would say, let me think here. Say your question one more time here. Just make sure I got that straight.
No, yeah. I mean, just the behavioral traits. What do you hope our pastors and leaders are known for?
Yeah.
So humility. And I hear that's kind of fascinating. On the other side of pride, it's not just a boastfulness.
Right.
It's a stewing. It's an internal kind of pride pity party that you were kind of talking about there. And I think that may be, and I've done work on the behaviors of a lot of leaders, that may be more robust than the kind of external verbose pride that can often be there and say the senior leader who but no, it's the kind of victim mentality.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it from you, and I'm actually going to wear my victimhood as a badge of honor.
Right.
Don't take that from me. Don't make me talk about it. But then you mentioned you didn't have the fruit of the Spirit, but I'm definitely not going to display peace. Give me a break. Don't you know how hard I work? That kind of victim mentality, that pity party that can take place. That's the opposite of humility. I totally agree with that, Kevin.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah. There's a whole book that has a whole chapter about that. It's the book, I forgot what the title is. It's something about humility. I can send it to you later, but there's a whole chapter about self-pity, and it just crushed me. I would say also too, remembering that their spouse, if they're married, their spouse is their highest assignment, their first assignment from God. Their family is their next assignment from God, and then the church and everything else is below that. So just to keeping the priorities straight. also think too, that, I should have wrote these down. I didn't even think about this.
It's all good.
Yeah. So, so pride, keeping your spouse or children or whatever here is number one. And then,
What about resilience?
yes. Yep. Definitely.
What does resilience mean to you? When you hear the word resilience, what does that mean for the leader?
Basically, making sure that things are, that things in your life are in balance. I guess that was what I was thinking of. Was the third one here is
Balance.
Is balance in life and ministry. Thinking about Sabbath keeping and things like that. We don't brag about how many cars we've stolen or how many people we've killed, but we brag about how many days we've gone without taking a day off. It seems like we're prideful about that one commandment that we're breaking. And we don't even think about that, but it's a really important thing. I mean, I think that's part of what gets some people in trouble, is because, again, pride getting in there, thinking like, hey, God needs me to work on my Sabbath because I don't get it all done. And, it's like we're saying that, God, I don't think you're strong enough to get this work done without my help. It's like, how arrogant is that of us to think that God needs our help so much that we can't take a day off. And that's just really another one that kind of crushes me as well as I think back, and how I could have been more, because it's kind of like the father and son in the car, where the dad puts the son on his lap to drive around, the parking lot just for fun, and says, "Hey son, try out driving and stuff." And, is the son really driving the car? No, of course not. But sometimes God is doing so much for us and through us that we think we're the ones driving the car, and he's really the one working through us and in us. So, yeah.
That's really good. Anything else regarding traits you pray for pastors to exude? I hear humility. I hear an understanding of your vocation, the order of your vocation. Yep. First, as a child of God, baptized in His name,
right?
And then I hear, and then as a husband or a spouse, right, and a father or a mother,
yeah.
and then I hear a call for self-care.
Yes.
You didn't use that language, but self-care is not selfish. Heart, body, mind, spirit.
Right.
Own the morning, own the day. Like how well are we starting our day taking care of the temple of the Holy Spirit, which is our body, right?
Right.
And if that gets out of whack, our brains are intimately. This is a fascinating thing. Our brains are intimately connected to our digestion system, our metabolism, and maybe some of the anxiety that we have as leaders is due to the fact that we're not fueling our bodies with things that come out of God's green earth. Mm-hmm. And I could go on a kick. I'm way into health and wellness and things like that. I actually just broke my hand.
Oh, no.
I coached my son's high school football team, and I was playing scout team quarterback, and I hit it on a helmet, and
oh my goodness,
broke my knuckle bone like right in there. So it takes 6 more weeks. And the biggest thing, well, 2 things: I can't type very well. Because it hurts to type, because my pointer finger, you can see if you're watching, is black and blue.
Wow.
But I also can't lift weights. I can't hold a weight in my hand.
No.
And that's like in the morning for me, that's like the hardest thing. The Lord teaching me patience and things. So nonetheless, I can do other things. I can still ride my stationary bike, which is cool. But just taking care of yourself. This is not a selfish thing. This is actually a selfless thing, which allows you to have more and more energy for others throughout the day. Anything more to say though about self-care there, Kevin?
Well, just one of the best books that I read since my burnout season, was by John Mark Comer, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Just an outstanding book, just a classic in just such a short time that it's been out. And I just started one today called Unoffendable, and just how, we as Christians, we can be unoffendable because of, why would we be offended by this or that? It's like, I don't know. It's just a really interesting concept that he's talking about. So anyway, so there's just a lot of books that I've read lately.
That's good.
So yeah.
Let's get into Shepherd's Canyon just a little bit deeper. Tell us about tell us about something that would surprise the listener, to know about the mission of Shepherd's Canyon Retreat Center.
Well, I'll tell you one thing is that when I first started in this chair, being the director, one of the first emails that I got was from a pastor who said, "Hey, I'm just like a zombie. I'm alive and barely moving. I'm not even sure I believe in God anymore." And I'm just like, "Oh my goodness, is this guy even fit for our type of retreat?" And but I passed him on to our counseling care director. He's the one that vets everyone, make sure it's a good fit for them. And then a couple of months later, I didn't even know, but he was in one of our retreats. And then at the end of the retreat, he just came to us and said, at our staff devotion, and said, "This is the best week of my life. I can't explain to you how much this means to me." And then a few weeks after that, his wife, normally the wives come with, but his wife wasn't at that retreat. And she's like, "Who's this guy you sent back to me? This is not the same man I sent to you. And I'm so grateful. I want to help you guys out professionally with the gifts that God's given me and what I do for other ministries around the country. So here's my services. I want to do it for you for free." So it's just amazing of the changes that God can do through this retreat center. It's just really surprises me. And of course, why would it surprise me? God's here. So.
Amen. So break it down. The average week. What does the average week or so of the retreat look like for pastors and other leaders?
Yeah, so definitely. Usually we start on a Monday and end on a Monday. First day, just kind of, travel day, all that stuff here. Tuesday is story day. And that's the day where everyone, and by the way, we only have 8 people at a time. It could be 4 couples. It could be 8 individuals, but 8 people. Plus we have 2 therapists, professionally trained, licensed, and all here from, there's a male and a female both, so we can reach, both perspectives there. And then we also have a chaplain that kind of focuses on the spiritual side of things instead of just the emotional side of things here. And so those 11 people will spend the whole week together here. First day, Tuesday, is story day, and that's when they're telling their stories. The next several days, in the mornings, it's group sessions where they're talking about things or going through lessons and things like that here based on the stories that were told. It's all customized, so it's not like just a cookie cutter program. But the morning, they're telling each other stories, and then the people sitting around. I mean, it's such a really amazing thing because they're hearing the stories of other people, and there's some similarities or there's some differences. And regardless of whether they're the senior pastor or the worship leader or a missionary or a teacher, they all come together and they can share the things that they are struggling with and the commonalities. So then in the afternoons is the individual time. So like either individual or couples counseling, and they just break out into times, and then everyone else kind of gets some free time. We have a beautiful site here. People can go around and enjoy, the pool or the hot tub or hiking around in this area here and stuff. But and then there's a full day off where they get a break. We take them either into Wickenburg, Arizona, or Prescott, Arizona, just places to visit, and then they come back for a few more days of sessions and worship, things like that. But the group stuff in the morning, individuals and couples in the afternoons, and then they have a closing ceremony at the end, and then they go out. And so it's just been really neat because it's for all Christian denominations and a wide variety of people coming here. We have from all over the world, really, because we like this week we have somebody here from Turkey. A couple of months ago, we had people from 4 different continents here at the same time. It was amazing. But
wow.
Anyway, but it's just so anyone, anywhere. Can be a part of that. So,
I know one of your counselors was in my wedding. Actually, shout out to Reverend Dr. Justin Hanneman. Do you know Justin?
Okay, yes, he started his own thing in Nebraska now, and he's doing great there and stuff. But he's not on our team. But I'm glad to hear that. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. He's a good dude. I know he was for a time. I guess not anymore. But all right, coming down the home stretch here, this has been fun, Kevin. Talk about your favorite stories of Jesus in the scriptures that are prime stories, metaphors that have sustained you in times of great trial and can offer hope to others walking through trial in leadership.
Well, I would say probably, one would be of Jesus in the boat, sleeping, and the disciples are freaking out because the storm's all around, and, they wake him up and, hey, don't you care if we all drown? And, because I know at least in this ministry, that's kind of how, the feeling is, at least where I was at. It's like, God, don't you care about me? I'm doing all this great stuff for you. Why can't you help me out here? And so, so the disciples are like, all that. And Jesus is like, calms the storm, basically kind of scolds them a little bit here about their lack of faith, and and just how sometimes we do that too. We are those disciples who, Jesus is there with us, but along with that too, sometimes I use that story as an illustration of rest. Sometimes we don't get enough rest, and we're like, hey, but I mean, God rested, during the 7 days of creation. Jesus slept in a boat. Jesus took naps. So I still need to get one of those T-shirts that talk about Jesus took naps. Be like Jesus. Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really, really helpful. Jesus is so. It seems like the entire Bible is God saying, "Trust me."
Yeah.
Have faith.
Yeah.
You're not alone.
Yep.
I'm not going to leave you nor forsake you. I'm for you.
Yeah.
Trust me and go on the adventure of faith. We're approaching. This will probably be released right around Reformation.
Oh yeah.
Day, and we're approaching the story of Luther, and I mean that is the call of the Reformation story. It's not by works. No amount of prayers or righteous deeds are going to save you. It's solely by grace through faith in Jesus and his work. And then your picture of, I get to sit on Jesus' lap. That sounds kind of strange to say, but I get to be held by Jesus. I get to be comforted by Jesus. He smiles over me. He's carrying me. He's got great plans for me. And all he's inviting me to do is to trust him and take the next step on my journey of faith, not to earn his approval. He can't be any more proud of me than he currently is, but simply to be light in the midst of darkness, to be his hands and feet, to be used by him. But not used up by him. There's a difference there, right? To be used by him, but he doesn't want me to be used up. I mean, I think the apostles, you get this sense in the early church that, there was martyrdom, there was suffering, there was loss, but the fuel of the whole thing was joy.
Yeah.
In the adventure of being carried by Jesus, the Holy Spirit at work in their life, the privilege that it was to walk through persecution and pain and trial so that people would know the hope of the resurrection in the person and work of Christ. And so, any closing comments, though, on kind of the posture of the leader being used by the Lord, but maybe not, he's not going to use us up. He's kind. He's not some kind of dictator on a throne. That's kind of vindictive toward us. He loves us desperately, Kevin. Right?
Well, I'll close with this, and for those of you that are viewing can see this here, but I'll pull it out in a second here. But one thing that really surprised me about moving to Arizona, because I had never lived in Arizona, I lived in Montana, Illinois, Nebraska, never lived in Arizona here, is that how cold it gets in the wintertime. I had no idea.
True.
And so my wife and I, since we no longer live on site per se, we actually still live in Montana, but travel all over the country. And so when we're here, we stay in a little tiny trailer that we bought. And so staying here in January, it was so cold. We had to sleep under 4 blankets. Okay.
Wow.
Because the heat wasn't keeping up. And then in the summertime, I'm like, I'm going to shut off the air conditioning while I'm gone, because why leave it? Why should I have an air conditioning on for 3 weeks while I'm traveling around the country, preaching in different places here and stuff. And when I came back the first time, of course it's like 100 degrees out. And anyway, so I come back and I find this in the trailer. Okay. I don't know if you can tell what that is, but it's a fake candle. Okay. And it's made with real wax to kind of have that more authentic look. Okay. But it had melted. Okay. While we were gone. And I'm just like, okay, well, now I learned my lesson. I don't keep turn off the air conditioning if I've got candles that I want to keep. And so I was on my way to throw this out, and two of my staff came by and I said, "Oh, hey guys, look at this," and then one of them says, "Hey, see if it still works." So I'm like, okay. So I flipped the switch on the bottom here, and lo and behold, it works. And so then I told my wife about it, and she's like, "Well, Kevin, that's your story. It's like you were burned out and you're in a different shape than what you were, but you can still shine the light of Christ to others in a different way in this ministry." And so for me, so now I can't throw away this candle. So it sits here in my office, just as a reminder that even though God has me in a different place, in a different situation, in a different shape, that I can still share his light with others.
Yeah, it's so good. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
You're a living example to the Apostle Paul. Pressed but not crushed, persecuted, not abandoned, struck down but not destroyed. Yeah. And he's still got wonderful work for you to do, Kevin. Praise be to God. How can people connect with Shepherd's Canyon and yourself if they desire?
Yeah, our website, shepherdscanyonretreat.org. If you know how to spell shepherd, most people spell that wrong, but if you know how to spell Shepherds Canyon Retreat, .org, you'll find everything there, our phone numbers, emails, and all that stuff here. And we're always looking for volunteers, financial support, all that stuff, and especially your prayers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got my prayers. If I can ever support Shepherd's Canyon in any way, Kevin, or partner with the Unite Leadership Collective, would be honored to do so. We're praying for healthy leaders, healthy churches, and health doesn't mean denying that ministry is hard. Health means identifying, this is hard, but I'm not alone. I have assets. I have the Holy Spirit, and I have the body of Christ, and I got really, really kind and well-trained people who want to bear my burdens with me. And that's exactly what Shepherd's Canyon does to raise up the prophet's arms, to keep them raised. For the days are too short to do anything else, man. Satan's coming after us big time these days. He's coming after leaders. I believe there's a turn that's taking place right now in America for a variety of reasons, and kind of the secular post-Christian day and age in which we live. Like, it's just not satisfying. It's the gods of this day and age are being exposed for the frauds that they are. And I think there's an upward draft of people who are going to bend the knee to Jesus as King and Lord. And will they find churches and leaders who say, you know what? As they follow Jesus, I want to follow that person. There's a lightness to them. The fruit of the Spirit is evident in their life. They've walked through pain and struggle, but they've come out the other side stronger, more resilient, more dependent upon Jesus. That's what I'm praying for today. Any closing comments, though, to the spiritual warfare in which we find ourselves in, Kevin?
Yeah, no, you said it well.
All right, man. Well, this is the American Reformation Podcast. It was a joy to get to know you, Kevin. Sharing is caring. Like, subscribe, comment wherever it is you take in podcasts like this. And we'll be back next week for another beautiful conversation about the Reformation that is needed in the American Christian Church. God bless you, Kevin. Thanks so much.